Two tails, one head, yang yang. Two tails, one head, yang yang. tails, one head, young yang. This is Qian heaven, trigram Qian heaven. Three heads, old yang. First changing line. Two tails, one head, yang yang. Two tails, one head, yang yang. Before we go into this, I wanted to read something that's been coming up quite a bit. Quote from Terence McKenna. And I'll link the video that this is from. There's really two videos that it's from. Maybe I'll link both of them. One's a longer version of the same. In the description box below. We are the custodians of the destiny of this planet, and yet we are still communicating with each other with the extremely precise medium of small mouth noises mediated by ignorance and hate. This does not seem like the way to do business. The birth of a new kind of humanity is going to take place, but there are still a lot of decisions to be made. How violent shall this birth be? What toll should it take on our mother, the earth? What shape shall the baby be in when it is finally delivered? These are the decisions that artists can mediate and control. Most people are scared of their subconscious. This is because there has been a failure of moral courage, and the failure of moral courage is probably most evident in our own community, the community of the artists. That's awesome. Hold on. There's an in-between picture that I deleted that has a little bit more of it that I thought didn't have anything. At least recently deleted. That's awesome. I can't get to it. Wow, cheese ball. Cancel. Okay, well, we'll just continue reading what I do have. The community of the artists. In a way, it's the poets that have failed us because they haven't provided a song that we could move all in concert to. That's what he says. So we are now in the absurd position of being able to do anything, and what we are doing is fouling our own nest and pushing ourselves toward planetary a planetary toxification and extinction. This is because the poets and artists have not articulated a moral vision. A moral vision must come from the unconscious. Art's task is to save the soul of mankind, and anything less is a dithering while Rome burns. If the artist cannot find the way, then the way cannot be found. Political ideology is extremely foreign to art. It is political ideology that has been calling the shots for the last 700 or 800 years. We can transcend politics if we can put some other program in place. You cannot transcend politics into a void. That was a talk he gave in Seattle, I believe. One of the last talks he gave, possibly, to artists. Anywho's, our primary hexagram, the bottom trigram will be read as solid, solid, solid. The top trigram of the primary hexagram will also be read as solid, solid, solid. And that, again, is Qian Heaven. This is the third reading I've done in a row, I think, that has been during the day. Most of my readings have all been at night. So getting a vibe of bringing things that are from the subconscious into the conscious. Qian Heaven is suprahuman cosmic law. Enduring, he determines the nature and development of all things, from the movement of the stars to the cycle of the seasons, to causing each individual seed to grow into its own kind of plant. Heaven is creativity in its pure form, the force that drives change and what endures within it. He confronts us with truth and what it demands, both as the absolute law of nature and as the challenge of individual calling, experienced as an inner law. He is both the awareness of what to do and how to be, and also the power to act on it. Heaven is Father, found in the northwest, the realm between autumn and winter, when the buds set and seeds fall to earth. Qian Heaven, above Qian Heaven, is hexagram number 1. Creative force, or heaven. We will actually look up the title in Lu I-ming's Taoist I Ching. Well, let's get the secret hexagram. Well, no, the supporting hexagram first. For our supporting hexagram, our changing line 4 will transform from an old yang to a young yin. So that will give us broken, solid, solid, which is Xun, wind, or wood? Yes. Xun is both wind and living plants. Whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows, shaping itself to the space available or shaping that space to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a way through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual, but far-reaching. In the family of Trigrams, Xun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. Xun, wind, or wood above Qian Heaven give us a supporting hexagram of 9. And we will look up the secret hexagram at the end. Primary hexagram 1 is heaven. One of the 4 timeless hexagrams, pure yang. It represents strength, firmness, life, innate knowledge, primal unified energy. And our supporting hexagram 9, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. 9, nurturance by the small. Nurturing inner strength by outward submissiveness. Being firm but not impetuous. Growing through humility. We'll start by looking at Kibi's I Ching Tarot. Hexagram 1, Heaven, or she calls it the creative / heaven. Wow. Hexagram 1, she says, the creative / heaven, strong, pure, active, informed, accomplished, reveals the entire process of all things, from incubation to leap forward, easy to start. The upper line is the stage where things are full and disappear. And supporting Hexagram 9, Nurturance by the Small, Kiwi calls. I'm also getting another tarot deck on the I Ching about shadow stuff, like Jungian shadow translations of each hexagram. So that should be interesting when that arrives. 9, she calls small taming. Of small taming, she says, accumulating wealth little, saving any excess, acting passively does not lose your sincerity. There is no need to show off your abilities. The top line is a metaphor for blessed rain. The sage is chilling with the butterflies in the field, it appears. Yep. Next, we'll look at Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path. Creating Your Future, that's right. At our hexagrams 1 and 9, primary hexagram, she calls, when we approach the I Ching to consult the oracle, the question we bring to it will always have the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirit or forces shaping this moment of time. Hexagram 1, she calls creative force. Key questions: how can you liberate creative energy? What wants to be created? Oracle, creative force. From the source, creating success. Constancy bears fruit. This is the pure creative spirit that flows through people and events. It drives towards manifestation, an inspiration that wants to be realized. It begins with an opening to the source of the creative impulse, not plans or intentions, but the vital energy that powers them. Then you create success by sustaining a continuous two-way flow between source and action. You step into the heart of a process of creation, welcome its momentum, and find ways to join and work with it. Through constancy, this brings out intrinsic potential and yields a harvest of positive results. To be constant is to be true to your intent, faithfully aligning all your choices with your original vision, and carrying your understanding through into practice and over time. Image: the heavens move ceaselessly. A noble one in his own strength does not pause. Creative force is the absolute power of heaven that moves the stars in their courses and makes the seasons turn. A noble one finds his creative force is within him, as close as his own breath. It does not need to pause and rest, and nor does he. Pair. Hexagram 1 is paired and contrasted with Hexagram 2, creative heaven with the receptive earth. They are the cosmic father and mother. Here's the picture she gives. Creative force is firm, the earth is open. Hexagram 1 has 6 firm yang lines. Hexagram 2 has 6 open yin lines. The two together bring the world into being. Idea and work, outpouring and receiving, inspiration and manifestation. Hexagram 1 marks a time of pure creativity, rather than for questions about what might be possible in practice. Next, we'll look at our supporting hexagram 9, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence a direction of travel, an underlying influence, whatever, that stuff. Hexagram 9, small taming. Key questions: what small thing can I work on today? How can I cultivate a better terrain? Oracle, small taming, creating success. Dense clouds without rain come from my western altars. To tame is to restrain and also to accumulate and nurture. It's what the farmer does. Here, the small farmer cultivates the soil for his own small plot, hoping the offerings made at the western altars will bring rain. The Zhao people, like the clouds, came from the west. Before they were ready to receive the mandate of heaven and bring about change, they prepared for many decades, cultivating their society like earth. So a time of small taming brings great hope for future growth and success. It's just that at the present, there is no rain, only clouds, and all they have brought so far is gloom. This means small restraint, the experience of small, frustrating setbacks and things that don't quite work yet. However, this also brings advice to cultivate the situation and yourself in small ways, developing your readiness and fitness just as a small farmer works the soil. You can't make things grow in a single gesture, and so you need self-restraint. You have to work steadily, responding conscientiously to the realities here at ground level, caring for the small details. Image: wind moves above heaven, small taming. A noble one cultivates the natural pattern of character. The wind moves above heaven. It doesn't yet bring rain to earth. It is directed by the inner creative force of heaven, naturally moving with it. Inwardly, there are unchanging principles. Outwardly, your actions gradually take on the shape of those inner principles. This is self-cultivation that aligns you with a creative power, which is our primary hexagram. The creative. It concentrates on growing potential rather than bringing about results. Sequence: small taming follows from hexagram 8, seeking union. Seeking union naturally has occasion to tame things, and so small taming follows. You have freely chosen where you belong and with whom, following your natural affinities. Now, if any of the potential you were drawn to is to be realized, you need to begin the detailed work. After the homesteader has entered virgin territory and chosen his own plot, he must get up next morning and every morning to work the soil, one weed at a time. Pair: small taming forms a pair with hexagram 10, treading. Small taming is solitary. Treading does not come to rest. Seeking to relate to the power that will make greater things possible, first you prepare alone and learn its nature, then you develop the capacity to move with it constantly. Next, we will look at our changing line 4 to show the changing line is the most focused part of the reading. It puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or here are some places you may find yourself. It takes precedence over all other elements. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. So changing line 4 of hexagram 1, Hilary Barrett says, someone dancing in the abyss, no mistake. A mysterious, fluid moment. Someone could be dancing in the abyss. Will the dragon take flight? For now, there is the dance along the border between just enough and not quite there, stretching your wings and playing with vast possibilities. There's no shortage of creative drive and imagination, but it's not clear what will prove attainable. Whatever the outcome, the dance is a key part of the process of creation, and no mistake. Next, we'll look at Benabel Wynn's I Ching The Oracle, a practical guide to the Book of Changes, an updated translation, annotated with cultural and historical references, restoring the I Ching to its shamanic origins. I absolutely love this book. Hexagram 1, our primary hexagram, she calls Qian Creative Power, the Oracle. Heaven's blessing, the creative power awakens a dragon. What had been hidden is now ascending. Take pause before you proceed on your endeavor. Be assured of your course of action before you proceed. Know who you are. Know where you came from. Be humble and modest. Be above reproach. Then those who seek to harm will be rendered harmless. You will become the dragon that emerges from the depths, visible and rising above your peers. A pillar of beneficent astral light guides your movements. You face a moment of choice, the temporal or the spiritual. Endurance and patience will be required of you, as what is to unfold shall do so for a prolonged length of time. The chi of heaven is full of vigor, powerful in action, and heals what is ailing. Harnessing the chi of heaven, the sage strives to be strong and capable and never ceases in that striving. Know what is weak within you and strengthen it. The sage maintains power by using that power for the greater good, aligned with the divine and not to further any self-interest. When the directive power above increases, so does the direct power below. It is now a period of expansion for you. Sublime success, favors bestowed from heaven. Ruling a splendorous kingdom bestowed with the grace of heaven and furthering the endeavor toward greatness. You are a pioneer. You wield both creativity and perseverance. Take pause before you proceed on your endeavor. Do not act on impulse. Instead, be a channel for the directive power of heaven. There is a marked difference between hearing your ego and listening to the voice of divinity. Listen to the directive voice of divinity. You want to be assured of your course of action before you proceed. Once you are assured of your course of action, act swiftly, firmly, and with conviction. You will not go wrong. You will become the dragon that emerges from the depths and becomes visible, rising above your peers. Know who you are before you proceed. Know where you want to go. If and when you can say for certain to yourself who you are and where you want to go, your creative power shall align with your will, and your will shall align with divine will, and divine will shall bring you immense success and fulfillment. Love you guys. Hexagram 9, our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Benabel Wynn calls, passed it. Xiao Xu, cultivate gently. The Oracle. Success in minor undertakings, ominous to endeavor in major undertakings. Passivity has taming power. A storm is brewing, and it is uncertain whether the clouds bring a rain that will nourish the fields or a rain that floods the rivers. It is a period to wait and see. Secrets, confusion, clouded judgment, the only way through is to be a subtle and unseen influence. Change conditions gently. Winds impel the heavens above, livestock in the sack. Livestock in the sack, small gains. Auspicious to proceed, the sage cultivates refinement. Dense clouds with no rain, I set upon the western threshold, passing beyond the horizon. That which has been raised now yields returns. The wind from above yields creativity below. You gaze at the sky and see stillness. Know that passivity has taming power. The sky is in movement. There is wind spreading out the seeds. Wind is the least visible of all phenomena, and yet that wind spreads the seeds far and wide, yielding productivity. For now, small gains to be had as the winds continue to nurture and refine. Power is accumulated by gently withholding its expression. Success in minor goals. You are a shepherd keeping your sheep calm with the calmness of your mind. Let the flock find their own shrubs and grass. The shepherd's only role is to see that they are safe. And yet here is the greater wisdom of cultivating gently. Do not delight in small advantages, or that is all you will ever achieve. The greatest gains are the result of benevolence and a mission to serve a greater good. The sage will always strive to achieve the impossible task of improving the world. The line, these ideograms or ideographs, appears again in the 5th line of Hexagram 62. Practicum 8.2, small victories gain by gain mantra. The judgment lines from Hexagram 9 serve as a mantra recitation to achieve a consecutive series of small victories. Endeavoring for small victories will lead to achievement of the magnum opus you seek. When you are feeling discouraged, invoke the higher powers of the Tao to rekindle your motivation and keep you going. This mantra helps you overcome the daily struggles of staying on task. It's divine assistance in the little steps to pave the way for something greater. Here is the mantra. Dense clouds, no rain. From my western bounds, gentle wind, clear sky, gain by gain. I'll show you the videographs as well. The lines in Chinese are poetic. The rhythm and aesthetics of the verse add to its power. So I recommend recitation of the mantra in its classical form. The English translation is provided so you know that what you're saying. So let's try that. Mi yun bu yu, zi wo xi jiao, feng tian xiao chu. I don't know if I remotely translated that correctly. Dense clouds, no rain is an acknowledgement that you're feeling unmotivated and lethargic right now. As a rainmaker, this recitation sets up the forces to produce rain to come. Dense clouds predict rain, which is an auspicious symbol of an abundant harvest. Intend, from my western bounds, to mean forces of divine support from the Queen Mother of the West. West is also symbolic of the correspondence to innovation, creativity, and fertility, per the Lo Shu magic square. Gentle wind, clear sky, gain by gain is an affirmative prayer. May the going be clear. May the divine give you the gentle nudges you need to push you forward. And may you achieve the progressive series of small undertakings. Repeat the mantra daily as a prayer and petition for success. When Hexagram 9 is the divinatory result, recite the I Ching mantra to give momentum to the winds of positive change. Very rare that a mantra is given with one of the I Ching hexagrams, so I highly recommend reciting that with that in mind. Building up the clouds for a store of rain for the harvest, so to speak. Our secret hexagram, our changing line 4 is the most focused point of the reading. It puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or here are some places you may find yourself. It takes precedence over all other elements. And changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Changing line 4 in our primary hexagram. One. 4th line, perhaps the dragon will leap into the abyss, delving upon the profound, remaining faultless, no harm shall come. An ascending dragon comes to a crossroads. You are in a transitional period. The dragon will either remain in the profane, or the dragon will take a leap of faith into the abyss and delve into the profound. You face a moment of choice. One choice is a life in public service, in the sunlight where the dragon flies among the clouds. The other choice is in solitude and privacy, where the dragon becomes king of an unknown abyss. Both will bring you fulfillment. Both will have challenges. It is up to you which you shall choose. No choice is better than the other. Divine will cares not which you choose. Both lead to success. Either path will yield success and fruition. No blame and no harm shall befall. You decide whether to bask in the sunlight by the shores or plunge submerged in a mysterious, uncharted void. Wow. All right. Next, we will look at, let's do James DeCorn's Gnostic Book of Changes, which I've left links to in the description box below. He is a practitioner of the Tao himself and cites some of the top English translations of the I Ching. And he quotes people like Carl Jung and the Kabbalah. His whole commentary is in a PDF online. You could download it, print it out if you wanted. He just never got it published. But he is very wise. And I recommend at least checking out his, it's at the very least, he gives so many different translations from top I Ching commentaries that it's quite helpful. Hexagram number 1, he calls the dynamic. Other titles, the creative, the symbol of heaven, the creative principle, force, the key, creativity, the originating, creative power, primal power, yang, the life force, kundalini, God the Father, judgment leg. The dynamic represents what is great and originating, penetrating, advantageous, correct, and firm. Wilhelm/Baines, the creative work, sublime success, furthering through perseverance. Blofeld, the creative principle, sublime success, persistence in a righteous course brings reward. Liu, the creative brings great success, benefiting all through perseverance. Ritzema/Karcher, force, spring growing, harvesting trial. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of the primal spirit power that both creates and destroys. It emphasizes that dynamic, unwearied persisting, the action of force, is the adequate way to handle it. To be in accord with the time, you are told to persist. Slofnacy, the key, primary reception, beneficial to determine. Cleary 1, heaven creates, develops, brings about fruition and consummation. Cleary 1, the creative is successful. This is beneficial if correct. Wu, the originator is primordial, pervasive, prosperous, and persevering. The image. Leg, heaven in its motion gives the idea of strength. The superior man, in accordance with this, nerves himself to ceaseless activity. Wilhelm/Baines, the movement of heaven is full of power. Thus, the superior man makes himself strong and untiring. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes the power of the celestial forces in motion, wherewith the superior man labors unceasingly to strengthen his own character. Liu, heaven moves powerfully. The superior man strengthens himself unceasingly. Ritzema/Karcher, heaven moves persistingly. A Chun-Tzu, or chief son or superior person, uses originating strength not to pause. Cleary 1, the activity of heaven is powerful. Superior people thereby strengthen themselves ceaselessly. Wu, heaven moves in full strength. Thus, the Chun-Tzu, or chief son or superior person, strives ceaselessly to be self-reliant. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, all things owe their inception to the vast and originating power of the dynamic. It contains all the meaning of the word heaven. Clouds move, rain falls, and the myriad things appear in their created forms. The sages comprehend the link between the end and the beginning. They understand how the changes of the 6 lines of the hexagram are accomplished, each in its season, and with this knowledge they ascend toward heaven as though mounted on 6 dragons. The intent of the dynamic is to transform everything so that it reflects its correct nature as originally conceived by the mind of heaven. Thereafter, this great harmony is preserved in union and firm correctness. The sage appears aloft, high above all things, and the myriad states are harmoniously united. Leg, For the Chinese, the dragon has been from the earliest times a symbol of dignity, wisdom, sovereignty, and sagehood. It is the symbol of the superior man, and especially the great man, exhibiting all the virtues and attributes of heaven. Although the dragon's home is in the water, it can disport itself on land and also fly through the air. The sage rules in the world of men as heaven rules nature. He sees the connection between the end and the beginning as the law of cause and effect in the operations of nature and human affairs. The various steps in that course are symbolized by the lines of the hexagram, and the ideal sage conducting his ideal government is represented as driving through the sky in a carriage drawn by 6 dragons. Notes and paraphrases, judgment. The dynamic is the life force itself. The superior man tirelessly furthers the great work of transformation. The image of a dragon appears in every line of this hexagram except the third. Like most symbols, the dragon has both a positive and negative aspect. In Western myth, it is usually an adversary which the hero must conquer before he can obtain a treasure or often a captive maiden. The Chinese, on the other hand, regard the dragon positively. Blofeld comments, in China, the dragon has always been regarded as a highly admirable creature of celestial origin. Dragons provide rain, make rivers run, and rule the ocean. The European dragon is clearly of another species. This seeming anomaly may say more about how East and West perceive the forces of nature, rather than refer to any true differences in the forces perceived. Wilhelm compares the dragon to the electrical energy within a thunderstorm. As lightning, it can destroy us, but in the form of electricity, it can be harnessed to do useful work. A dragon is nothing if not a huge serpent, and this suggests the idea of the serpent power, or kundalini energy, which when aroused in the human body has been likened to a sudden jolt of electricity running up from the base of the spine to the top of the head. The kundalini force is equated in turn with sexual energy, dynamic power which ensures the continuance of all but the most primitive of living organisms. Without the powerful energy of sexuality, life as we know it could not exist. When the dragon remains unconquered in the cave-like depths of the unconscious, the life force autonomously rules our lives, and we become passive vehicles for random desires and appetites. This electricity will flow wherever it finds a circuit of least resistance, and under these conditions, an individual's life is largely created by chance and circumstance. When one begins the work, the task of individuation, one assumes the role of the hero or warrior who does battle with the dragon in order to bring it under his will. This is a great struggle, and success is not guaranteed, but if one is able to control the primordial power of the life force, the treasure, or the maiden, which in the male psyche amounts to the same thing, is obtained. You might, since he makes a reference to that, you might call it Shakti then, because Shakti is thought of as feminine and is the Kundalini force, power. This is tantamount to attaining a higher level of consciousness. In its highest form, it constitutes enlightenment. Our last reading, which was just 6 days ago, had enlightenment as part of it, or Kundalini, awakening, which rarely comes up. So them coming up boom, boom like this is very, very, very implicative. I can't think of the right word. Has a great omen. The symbolism of all the hexagrams works on many different levels, and this is especially true of the first two, which must be studied together for a full comprehension of each. Kabbalists, for example, will recognize in these two figures the same forces found in Chakma and Baina on the Tree of Life. For the purposes of this comparison, it must be noted that the first hexagram symbolizes heaven and the second symbolizes earth, force and form. As consciousness is to the body it inhabits, so force is to form and heaven to earth. Form is magnetic or negative in polarity, and force is dynamic or positive. In esoteric symbolism, heaven does not mean the universe above us, it means the consciousness within us. This polarity is also reflected in the relationship between the ego and the self. In a properly regulated psyche, the ego is always magnetic to the dynamic self. a quote from F. Hartman in Paracelsus, Life and Prophecies. There is an invisible universe within the visible one, a world of causes within the world of effects. There is force within matter, and the two are one, and are dependent for their existence on a third, which is the mysterious cause of their existence. There is a world of soul within a world of matter, and the two are one, and caused by the world of spirit. Very close to Kashmir Shiaism as far as I understand it. Sounding. Suggestions for meditation. To get a fuller grasp of the numinously beautiful structure of the I Ching and the transcendent reality which it reflects, one should meditate on each of the hexagrams as often as possible. One can never exhaust their meaning. The first two hexagrams, because they are the cosmic parents of the others, are especially rich in their associations. Here are a few suggestions for meditation. 1. Compare and contrast the general ideas in the first three hexagrams, noting how the third is a logical progression of the first two. 2. The Confucian commentary on the dynamic is particularly rich in meaning. Read it over and over again. It contains the principles of the work as outlined in more detail in the other hexagrams. Compare the sixth sentence with the ideas in hexagram number 20, contemplation. And 3, compare the first two hexagrams with the hexagram number 11, harmony, and number 12, divorcement, noting the implications of the symbolism in terms of the proper management of the work. Next, we'll look at our supporting hexagram 9, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. He calls hexagram 9 passive restraint. Other titles: the taming power of the small, the symbol of a small restraint, or of a small restraint. The lesser nourisher, taming the small powers, small accumulating, small harvest, small obstruction, nurturance by the small, restraint by the weak, restrained, minor restraint, the weak force, the force of the small, weak forces restrain strong forces. A quote from D.F. Hook: the restraint is small, success follows. Overcoming something small which is poisoning or nagging, partially relieving a situation, influencing that which one cannot change. Judgment. Leg. Passive restraint brings about progress and success. We see dense clouds, but no rain coming from our western borders. Wilhelm/Baines, the taming power of the small has success. Dense clouds, no rain from our western region. Blofeld, the lesser nourisher, success. Dense clouds giving forth no rain approach from the western outskirts. On the whole, this hexagram presages good for us. The wind blowing across the heavens does not have the nourishing virtues of rain, but it refreshes us and makes us feel better. Thus, if things are going reasonably well with us, we may expect an improvement, especially in the future when, presumably, the nourishing rain will fall. However, as lines 3 and 6 indicate, if we are in serious trouble, we must not expect much help from the rather mild good fortune that is blowing our way. The conception of something weak or yielding bringing great benefit has been greatly developed by the Taoists who, as though they were familiar with judo, recognized the strength to be found in softness and the dangerous weakness sometimes occasioned by too much strength. The name of this hexagram, understood somewhat differently, may also be taken to mean that the time is propitious for undertaking additional activity or the care of the young. Lu, taming the small powers, success, thick clouds come from the west, no rain. This situation symbolizes the preparation which precedes a new development. Ritzema/Karcher, small accumulating, growing, shrouding clouds, not raining, originating from my western suburbs. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of a variety of seemingly unconnected events and impulses. It emphasizes that retaining and hoarding these experiences through adapting to them is the adequate way to handle it. That tells me keep a close watch on why can't I think of the word? Such a basic word. Synchronicities. Yeah, basically that. Sloughnessy, small harvest, receipt, dense clouds do not rain from our western pasture. Cleary 1, nurturance by the small is developmental. Dense clouds do not rain, proceeding from one's own western province. Cleary 2, At small obstruction, nurturing the small succeeds. Wu, restraint of the small indicates pervasiveness. There are dense clouds, but no rain coming from our western countryside. The image. Now we're at the image section. Leg, the image of the sky with the wind moving above it forms passive restraint. The superior man, in accordance with this, adorns the outward manifestation of his virtue. Wilhelm/Baines, the wind drives across heaven, the image of the taming power of the small. Thus, the superior man refines the outward aspect of his nature. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes wind blowing across the sky. The superior man displays his scholarly accomplishments. Lu, the wind blows across the sky, symbolizing taming the small powers. The superior man improves his ability and virtue. Ritzimus/Karcher, wind moving above heaven, small accumulating. The Chun Tzu, or chief son or superior person, uses highlighting the pattern to actualize Tao. Actualized Tao is the ability to follow the course traced by the ongoing process of the cosmos, linked with acquire, D, acquiring that which makes a being become what it is meant to be. Clary 1, wind blowing up in the sky is small nurturance. Thus do superior people beautify cultured qualities. Clary 2, wind moving up in the sky, nurturing the small. Thus do leaders beautify cultured qualities. Wu, the wind blows in the sky above. This is restraint of the small. Thus the Chun Tzu, or chief son or superior person, refines his splendorous virtue. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, in the 9th hexagram, the magnetic line takes her proper place and all the lines above and below obey her. Hence the name passive restraint. The figure is composed of the trigrams of strength plus flexibility. Dynamic lines occupy the central places and their will is accomplished. This means progress and success. Dense clouds but no rain depict the advancing dynamic lines, but their source in the west shows that their beneficial influence has yet to be felt. Leg. The symbolism of the hexagram passive restraint is taken from the magnetic line in the 4th place, which holds all of the dynamic lines in restraint. This is because the 4th place is properly passive, magnetic, and the response of the other lines is therefore one of submission to her authority. The 2nd sentence of the judgment indicates the time and place of King Wen, whose homeland was the western portion of China in the 12th century BC. Rain coming and moistening the ground causes the luxuriant growth of the natural world and symbolizes the blessings which flow from good government. Therefore, from the west, the hereditary territory of the legendary author of the I Ching, come the blessings which might enrich the whole kingdom. Here, however, they are somehow restrained. The dense clouds do not yet empty their stores. Cheng Tzu, Wang Feng, and other scholars say, in effect, dense clouds should give rain. That they exist without doing so shows the restraining influence of the hexagram at work. But the dynamic influence of the other lines still continues, and the rain will eventually fall. The wind moves in the sky and then ceases. It can restrain for a time, but not indefinitely. Clary 1, being strong yet acting submissively. The submissiveness subdues the strength, and strength cannot act on its own. The heart grows daily humbler, while the virtue grows daily higher. One can thereby gradually get to the realm of sages. This is why nurturance by the small is developmental. Clary 2, when you encounter situations that obstruct you and bog you down, if you do not get resentful or bitter, but just nurture yourself to digest them, you will be successful. Indeed, events and situations that formerly obstructed you can become means of self-development. This is how you succeed. This line indicates the value of not grabbing for easy success and the value of long-term results. Wu, restraint of the small means literally small accumulation or small restraint. Small is another name for yin. Small accumulation or small restraint can also mean accumulation or restraint of the yin. When there are clouds but no rain, it means that something has intervened and prevented the cycle from completion. The judgment simply means many factors can derail a potential success, and we should weigh them carefully before making a decision. Anthony, our influence is limited by the circumstances. We should avoid ambition to make progress, as this exerts a negative pressure on people. It also indicates that we do not yet trust our path of non-action or the power of truth to change the situation. Notes and paraphrases judgment. Power is accumulated by gently withholding its expression. The superior man transforms his insights into components of his conscious will, or he works on his outer conscious as opposed to inner unconscious awareness, or he lives his beliefs. Like I said, doing these last three during day made me think of bringing the unconscious into the conscious, or acting upon what you know true about the unconscious. Wilhelm's translation of the title of this hexagram is The Taming Power of the Small. I have substituted passive restraint as a phrase more compatible with contemporary English. The titles rendered by the other translators, in my opinion, do not convey the meaning of the hexagram. Liu's Taming the Small Powers even seems diametrically opposed to it, though it is obvious that the title has multiple meanings. In describing the action of the trigrams in this hexagram, Wilhelm conveys its essential meaning from Lectures on the I Ching. The function of wind is to tame creative forces, to accumulate these and to make them visible. It is exceedingly difficult to understand this relationship of forces, because the power used here is not expressed with might, but it is the softest, gentlest force imaginable. Wind is the least visible of all phenomena, and this invisible wind is now needed to concentrate that which strives upward, the strongest of all phenomena. The unconscious acts and creates as it must, and we should submit to the surgings of its waves. Only in the peripheral region, in the small free zone of consciousness, can work be taken up each day, and whatever needs refining can be refined. This is not superfluous work. Although this small zone of consciousness and freedom is only a thin rind, its contact with the forces of the unconscious is vigorous. Hence, that which is seemingly small and insignificant is, after all, the power that succeeds in taming chaos by means of steady work and perseverance. Lines 1 through 4 of the 9th hexagram show different forms of restraint during a time of building tension. The dark clouds are accumulating, and we know that eventually the rain will fall and the tension will be released. Rain always symbolizes a union between heaven and earth in the I Ching, which in turn means synthesis of some sort. In the present instance, the synthesis is still building, and although the tension seems to demand action, we are counseled to remain still. The magnetic force must hold the overwhelming pressure of the dynamic forces in check. The 5th line depicts the focal point at which the forces are gathered, and the 6th line shows the restraint necessary to allow the new transformation to stabilize. If we turn the hexagram over, we get cautious advance, which depicts a different situation in which very careful action is called for. In the present instance, however, no action is correct action. A quote from Gershom Scholem in Kabbalah: "Through the activity of divine providence, an abundance of blessing descends on the creatures, but this awakening of the power of providence is dependent on the deeds of created beings, on awakening from below." With our primary hexagram being the creative, or heaven, or the dynamic, you've got this buildup of primal power. You might even call Shiva, potentially, or if you're talking about it Kundalini-wise, you could call it Shakti, which is Shiva, essentially. You've got this primalness going on, and then you have the restraining power of the small, where you have one yin line restraining the clouds of this dynamic, the rain from coming. And in that supporting hexagram, it shows that there's nothing that should be done. So it's almost like this rain will eventually pour, and the beneficial effects of it will be felt, but as yet they're kind of being held in the wings, and it's a lot of this power that's being held in the wings. And so we shall see. And there also seems to be a choice in the secret hexagram. I keep saying secret hexagram, but the changing line 4. And we're going to read changing line 4 in James Corn's Gnostic Book of Changes as well. But first, let's see what the secret hexagram, changing line is. It's the most focused point in the reading. It puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or here are some places you may find yourself. It takes precedence over all other elements and is the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Changing line 4, leg. In the fourth dynamic line, we see its subject as the dragon looking as if he were leaping up, but still in the deep. There will be no mistake. Wilhelm/Bain's wavering flight over the depths, no blame. Blofeld, leaping about on the brink of a chasm, he is not at fault. Lu, the dragon leaps from the abyss, no blame. Ritzema/Karcher, maybe capering located in the abyss, without fault. Slofnacy, and now jumping in the depths, there is no trouble. Cleary 1, sometimes leaping or in the abyss, no error. Cleary 2, one may leap in the abyss, no error. Wu, the dragon may leap out of the abyss, there will be no blame. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, he seems to be leaping up, but is still in the deep. If he advances, there will be no error. Wilhelm/Baines, advance is not a mistake. Blofeld, for him to advance would involve no fault. Ritzema/Karcher, advancing without fault indeed. Wu, it is blameless to proceed. The master said, without a permanent home either above or below, the superior man yet commits no error. He advances or retreats as circumstances require and conforms to the law of his nature. The superior man, devoted to his work and the evolution of his virtue, advances only at the proper time and therefore avoids mistakes. Miscellaneous notes. He tests himself. A change is in process. The power is not central, neither in heaven above, nor in the field beneath, nor in the human realm between them. Because he is perplexed and anxious about his choices, he will incur no blame. Leg. Both the third and fourth lines of any hexagram belong to man and are intermediate between those of heaven above and those of earth beneath. Kung Ying Ta, to explain the difficulty in what is said on this fourth line, says that man is actually nearer to earth than to heaven, and is aptly represented therefore by the third line and not by the fourth. In any event, the subject of this fourth line will move very cautiously and so escape blame. Notes and paraphrases, Sue. After a while, the man is confronted with a choice for public service in world affairs or solitude in further personal development. Either is appropriate if pursued in virtue and at the proper time. Wing. A time of choice is at hand. Because of amplification in your creative power, you must decide whether to enter the public eye and serve society, or whether to withdraw and work on your inner development. Follow your deepest intuition and you will not make a mistake. Editor, the fourth line bears a certain similarity to the third. As the lowest line of the upper trigram, it is also in a threshold position of transition. Although hesitation and uncertainty are implied, one is counseled to take action when it is appropriate to do so. This implies that you are on the right track, but that certain self-confidence is required. The line can sometimes just portray a confused situation. Quote from Jung in The Structure and Dynamics of the Psyche. This green tea I'm drinking is thick. Makes my throat stick together. James DeCorn breaks changing line 4 into 3 possible succinct definitions, A, B, and C. A, keep trying. B, the will is being tested through a transitional period. The power for advancement depends on the self-confidence that comes with knowing you have made a correct choice. And C, to stay on top of a changing situation, keep the faith and play it by ear. Next, we will look at Lu Yiming's Taoist I Ching, which is quite alchemical in nature. He wrote it in 1796 as a Taoist adept. It's quite alchemical in nature. I said that. You can see which parts of me have memorized which things and are just automatic. The text for Hexagram 1, Heaven. Heaven creates, develops, brings about fruition and consummation. Explanation. Heaven is sound in the sense of being strong and indomitable. The lines making up the body of the hexagram are all odd. This represents pure yang, so it is called heaven. This hexagram represents the advance of yang, whereby the science of building life acts with strength and uses the path of firmness. In strength, nothing is stronger than heaven. Heaven, as the Tao, is a flow of unitary energy, circulating continuously, never ceasing. There is nothing it does not cover, nothing that can harm it. This is the ultimate of soundness and strength. Therefore, producing things in spring is the creativity of strength. Creation means the beginning, the first arising of positive energy. When positive energy is born, all things sprout. Such is the strength of creativity. Developing things in summer is the growth of strength. Development is extension, the expansion of positive energy. As positive energy expands, all things develop and flourish. Such is the strength of development. Maturing things in autumn is the fruition of strength. Fruition is goodness, the proper benefit of positive energy. When positive energy achieves its proper benefit, all things come to fruition. Such is the strength of fruition. Storing things in winter is the consummation of strength. Consummation is quiescence, the resting of positive energy. When positive energy rests quietly, all things return to their root. Such is the strength of consummation. Creation, development, fruition, consummation, the successive movements of the 4 seasons, all are carried out by one strength. The one is the body. The 4 are the function. The body is that whereby the function is carried out. The function is that whereby the body is completed. Body and function are as one. Therefore, the Tao of heaven acts with strength unceasing. As for human beings, they first take form, sustained by the energy of heaven. So they have the quality of strength of heaven inherent in them, and hence have this creativity, development, fruition, and consummation, the functions of strength. The quality of strength in people is original innate knowledge, the sane primal energy. This is called true Jung, or the truly unified vitality, or the truly unified energy. Confucianism speaks of singleness of mind. Taoism speaks of embracing the one. Buddhism speaks of returning to the one. All of them simply teach people to cultivate this strong, sound, sane energy. This energy is rooted in the primordial, concealed in the temporal. It is not more in sages, nor less in ordinary people. At the time of birth, it is neither defiled nor pure, neither born nor extinct, neither material nor void. It is tranquil and unstirring, yet sensitive and effective. In the midst of myriad things, it is not restricted or constrained by myriad things. Fundamentally, it creates, develops, and brings about fruition and consummation spontaneously. All this taking place in unminding action, not needing force. It comes spontaneously from nature, not forceful yet strong, strong yet not forceful. Strength, having no perceptible form or trace, is referred to as the celestial human. Once it mixes with acquired temporal conditioning, temperament appears and is seduced by objects. The essential intimacy of heaven and humanity then becomes estranged by habit. People abandon the real and give recognition to the artificial, so innate knowledge is obscured. At this point, creation is not creative. Development is not developmental. Fruition is not fruitful, and consummation is not consummate. The quality of strength is already lacking, so the functions of strength are not what they are anymore. The spirit is dim, the energy is polluted, essence is disturbed, life is shaken. Though the body moves, positive energy dissipates, and death is inevitable. This is why the sages have the science of building life, to restore the primordial in the midst of the temporal, whereby it is possible to sustain the original qualities of the strength of heaven, never to decay. The method of cultivation and practice is none other than this function of creation, development, fruition, and consummation. When people can see through everything, look deeply into themselves, and turn around to set their minds on essence and life, then in the midst of trance, there will be a point of living potential that will subtly emerge. This is the creation of strength. If people can cultivate and nurture this single-mindedly, putting it into actual practice, persevering indefatigably, acting so as to achieve their aim, this is the development of strength. If people can cultivate their vital spirit and powerfully go forward so that strong energy is stabilized, objects do not obstruct them, and life and death are as one. This is the fruition of strength. If people can investigate things and attain knowledge, distinguish what is so and what is not, what is wrong and what is right, staying in what is appropriate and not deviating from it, this is the consummation of strength. Creation is whereby that strength is born. Development is whereby that strength is expanded. Fruition is whereby that strength is fulfilled. Consummation is whereby that strength is consolidated. Creation, development, fruition, and consummation are functions of one energy. Starting from effort, you end up in spontaneity, integrating completely with natural principle. Then this is the original face of innate knowledge, whereby you can share in the function of heaven and share in the eternity of heaven. However, in this science, there are medicinal substances. There is a firing process. There is a course of work. There is intensification and relaxation. There is stopping at sufficiency. You can advance into its marvels only if you practice it according to its laws and develop it with the appropriate timing. If you deviate in the slightest, you will fail altogether. If one of the four aspects, creation, development, fruition, or consummation, is lacking, then the quality of strength will not be complete and life will not be your own. So it is necessary to know this firing process of advancing yang. And the commentary section on Hexagram 1. Heaven, heaven above, heaven below. The activity of heaven is powerful. Superior people thereby strengthen themselves ceaselessly. Heaven is the celestial. Its quality is power. In this image, heaven is above and below. This is the image of the unified energy of heaven, which flows ceaselessly above and below, acting powerfully. What superior people see in this is that since humans originate from the energy of heaven, they have this powerful quality of heaven. This power originally flows unceasing and uninterrupted, but because of mixture with acquired conditioning, people abandon the real and enter the artificial, strengthening what should not be strengthened, so as a result there is at times interruption of the flow of the original celestial power. Therefore, superior people work on the activation of the celestial power, temporarily using the artificial to cultivate the real, restoring the primal while in the midst of the temporal, strengthening themselves ceaselessly. Strength means unbending firmness and strength, which myriad things cannot move. If one can strengthen oneself ceaselessly, then wholesome energy is always present, and one has inner autonomy. Wealth cannot make one decadent. Poverty cannot move one. Authority and force cannot suppress one. One does not act without propriety. One does not abide in untruth. One does not wreak injustice. Whether in pleasant or unpleasant circumstances, this strength is everywhere, never ceasing. Such action is, as it were, celestial. But there are people who are powerful in a worldly sense. There are people who are powerful yet are drawn by things to use their power externally. There are also people who can sometimes strengthen themselves, who start out diligently but end up slacking off, who follow the path but give up along the way. Genuine work of self-strengthening is all a matter of not ceasing. If there is any slacking off, if there is any personal desire, it cannot be called strength. It cannot be called self-strengthening. Only ceaseless self-strengthening can reach total integration with the celestial design, the indestructible, permanent state. Heaven is the order of life. Life is the quality of power, which is the original vast true energy. Because it has neither shadow nor form, yet is lively and active, flowing ceaselessly, it is called energy. Because it is most great and most strong, filling the universe, it is called power. Because it is the master of myriad beings, the progenitor of yin and yang, the root of creation, it is called the order of life. Energy, power, life, all are one strength. The work of life building is consummated in self-strengthening without cease. This is the science of following the pattern of heaven. Next, we will look at the changing line 4, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. Nope. We have to read the supporting hexagram. That was all just on our primary hexagram. Supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Then we'll read the changing line. Nurturance by the small. Nurturance by the small is developmental. Dense clouds do not rain, proceeding from one's own western province. Explanation. Nurturance by the small is making the small one's nourishment. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is wind, submissive, below is heaven, strong. Being strong, yet acting submissively, the submissiveness subdues the strength, and strength cannot act on its own. Therefore, it is called nurturance by the small, which also means being held back by the small. This hexagram represents nurturing the great by the small. It follows on the previous hexagram, army. The path of the army is using yang to repel yin, for which it is important to first nourish the yang. When one is able to nourish the yang, then one keeps to oneself by the small, full but not overflowing, firm but not aggressive, having yet appearing not to have, full yet seeming empty. The heart grows daily humbler, while the virtue grows daily higher. One can thereby gradually get to the realm of sages. This is why nurturance by the small is developmental. However, though nurturance by the small is developmental, if the smallness is excessive, this is doing things weakly, so that the path of firmness recedes from its proper place. The will is not robust, and one becomes feeble and ineffective. With the nurturance small, the development is small, so that the action is not far-reaching, and the great Tao is therefore hard to attain. This is like dense clouds not raining, proceeding from one's own western province. Yin energy coalesces as clouds. Yang energy arrives as rain. As long as clouds do not rain, the yin energy is prevalent, while the yang energy is weak, and the living potential is on the verge of cessation. That which is near in oneself is not even taken care of, so how could one seek that which is afar in the other? When one small empty voidness enters into quietism, how can one restore one's celestial original state? So one must know the process of nurturance by the small. And then the commentary section of Hexagram 9, and then we will get to this, I'll keep only saying secret hexagram, the changing line. Small nurturance, wind above, heaven below, wind blowing up in the sky is small nurturance. Thus do superior people beautify cultured qualities. Small nurturance is smallness of development. Above is wind, below is heaven. This is wind blowing up in the sky. When wind blows on the earth, by its circulation of air to myriad beings, its nurturance is extensive. When it blows up in the sky, it can only relieve heat, so its nurturance is small. This is the image of small nurturance. What superior people see in this is that the science of fulfilling nature and comprehending life is the great work of appropriating yin and yang, taking over evolution, reversing the process of life and death, taking charge of the pivotal mechanism. It cannot be carried out by those who have not received mental transmission of the science. But if great nurturance is impossible, then small nurturance is still called for, whereby to beautify cultured qualities. Beautification means adornment. Culture means the pattern of manners and conduct. Even though manners and conduct are not the great matter of cultivation of spiritual virtue, nevertheless, those who cultivate spiritual virtue should not slight manners and conduct. Examples of cultured qualities are being equanimous and agreeable in dealing with people, being respectful and serious in performing service, being thorough and precise in activity, being careful and prudent in speech, concealing one's strength and acting with flexibility, observing what has gone before and being mindful of consequences, being serene and unhurried. One will naturally not act in any way that is impetuous or causes loss of character. This is like the wind blowing in the sky, relieving the heat. When one cultivates one's character to the point where irascibility and impetuosity vanish, then one is capable of small nurturance and also capable of great nurturance. 2, the changing line. 4, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself, takes precedence over all other elements and is the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 4 as the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Hexagram 1, heaven, changing line 4. Sometimes leaping or in the abyss, no error. Explanation. The quality of strength has developed. The spiritual embryo is complete, awaiting the time to molt and transmute. This is like a dragon which may leap up or remain in the abyss. One carefully examines the climate and takes precautions against danger so that one can be free from error. The alchemy of the last reading had to do with developing the embryo and gathering the medicinal substances and stopping the firing process. And stopping the firing process was important so that what was already developed would not be damaged, and what was still developing could be further developed. And here we have in the changing line 4 of Louis Ming's I Ching, Taoist I Ching, showing that the alchemy here is that the embryo has been completed and now it is in the abyss, waiting to transmute and molt. And it could either leap out of the abyss or remain in the abyss. And in some of the other commentaries, we looked at that kind of being like entering public service or remaining in the shadows, which either one would be the right course, but it was the choice of the person getting the reading, essentially. All right. Next, we will look at Browne Walker, one of my absolute favorites as well. The I Ching, or Book of Changes, A Guide to Life's Turning Points. Then we will look at the secret hexagram to see the hidden influence behind the situation. Then we will sum up the reading and read a chapter or 2 or 3 from the Tao Te Ching to wrap everything up. Our primary hexagram, 1, Browne Walker calls Chi-En, or the creative. If you are alert to the creative, you will meet with good fortune now. This hexagram signals a time when the fundamental creative power of the universe is available to you. An unrestricted outpouring of benevolent energy from the heavens makes possible profound progress for those who are conscientiously following proper principles. Frantic activity is not in order. Your responsibility instead is to be open and receptive to the higher power, allowing it to guide your actions. By allowing inferior thoughts and habits to pass away, you make room for an expansion of your superior qualities, which leads inevitably to good fortune. In your conduct with others, embody tolerance, reticence, and gentleness. Strive to meet others halfway in every situation. To overextend yourself or require that of another is to create an undesirable imbalance. Your attitude toward the sage is most important. Alertness and receptiveness are paramount. To receive the powerful assistance of the creative, remain humble, patient, accepting, and responsive. Careful attention to truth brings vast rewards at this time. I want to note again that one of the titles James DeCorn brought up into the equation for Hexagram 1 was Kundalini. And our supporting Hexagram 9, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence and direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. Chou, not sure how to say that, the taming power of the small. You are temporarily restrained. It is a time for taking small steps. This hexagram signifies a time when darkness has temporarily enveloped the light. The creative power is present in the background, however, and will come forward in time. Creative power is what we're working with. That's interesting that it's actually talked about in this hexagram. It's even capitalized. So that's what he's talking about for sure. So this creative power in our primary hexagram is in the background right now, waiting in the wings essentially, and we're kind of hovering at the door in and out of the abyss on this fence of whether or not to transmute or molt, since the embryo has been completed and is just hovering in the abyss, or you might call it the womb, I suppose. And that's all dependent on the choice of each individual person, essentially, who's receiving the message. Your responsibility, let's see. The creative power is present in the background, however, and will come forward in time. Your responsibility in this moment is to accept restraints quietly and remain content with taking small steps. The obstacles to success can only be removed now by gentle measures. Inside yourself, be focused and determined. On the outside, non-action, adaptability, neutrality, and tolerance are the order of the day. Ambitious behavior is to be avoided. Think of planting seeds rather than harvesting fruit. Do not forget that the inferior elements within yourself, others, and the time itself may only be restrained now, not fully removed. Do not be tempted into any engagement which will serve to unbalance you. Instead, hold quietly to the center and take small steps until the higher power has tamed the obstacles in your path, in your way, rather. And our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context and influence, a direction of travel. Oh, no, we did that. The changing line, which puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself, takes precedence over all other elements and is the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 4 has the general context, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. Hexagram 1, changing line 4. A place of transition. There is the possibility of progress in many directions. Let go of preconceived notions about your proper path. You succeed by allowing the creative to guide you. Wow. That puts a new flavor on it, because before it all had to do with the decision of the person getting the reading. Here, Browne Walker advises waiting for the guidance of the creative. Or heaven is one way of calling it. You succeed by allowing the creative to guide you. All right, next we will look at the secret hexagram, which is obtained by putting the second, third, and fourth lines as the bottom trigram from our primary hexagram, and then the third, fourth, and fifth lines of our supporting hexagram as the top trigram. So that would read solid, 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 and then solid, broken, solid. So that's Kuion, heaven, beneath Li, fire and light, which give us a secret hexagram of 14, which is great possession, mutual enhancement of strength and lucidity, continuous renewal, inward discipline. in our last reading, continual renewal was something that was hovering about, and it was in question on whether or not you could obtain continuous renewal. So this being a secret hexagram here is incredibly auspicious. All right, who do we want to read from first? Let's do Hilary Barrett to start. Hexagram 14, our secret hexagram, which is like bottom deck energy if you're talking tarot. It's the hidden influence behind the situation. Hexagram 14, Hilary Barrett calls great possession. Key questions. Given all you have, who will you be? How can you affirm and support what is good? Oracle, great possession from the source, creating success. Great possession means you are rich, maybe in material goods, maybe in less tangible assets like knowledge, wisdom, power, energy, talent, or relationships. Whatever form it takes, you have something real and potent in your possession. The Chinese word for possession also means there is. So this is great being as well as great having. What there is and what you are as well as what you have. That ends with a period, not a question mark. What there is and what you are as well as what you have. The ancient form of the character shows an outstretched hand which may hold an offering. To possess is to offer. What you have is by definition what you can give. And what you have and can give is great. This is pure potential, an opening to the source, and a promise of abundant energy ready to enter into circulation and become creatively active. That's exactly in tune with our supporting hexagram talking about all this power waiting in the wings, like clouds that are full of rain but have yet to dump this nourishing rain on the fields. And yet it is bound to happen. And here it's, what does it say? And what you have and can give is great. This is pure potential, an opening to the source and a promise of abundant energy ready to enter into circulation and become creatively active. Image, fire dwells above heaven, great possession. A noble one ends hatred and spreads the good. She yields to heaven and rests in her mandate. The stars move in their courses in accordance with natural law. A noble one has an inner awareness of creative reality and carries this through into insight and clarity in living. The greatness of the cosmos is that it works as it should, and so her task is quite simple: to allow it to be, remove obstacles, and work with it. Hatred would only waste energy resisting reality. Spreading the good aligns with the natural order. The sun does not struggle to rise in the sky, it just rises. In the same way, because a noble one assents to what is and yields to heaven, she can rest in her work. Sequence. Great possession follows from hexagram 13, people in harmony. Reaching out to people in harmony means beings truly return home. And so great possession follows. I'm reading that again. That's incredible. Reaching out to people in harmony means beings truly return home. And so great possession follows. With harmony, beings come into their right places. True relationships form, and a flow of exchange, of having and giving, is set in motion. Exchange is wealth, and so great possession follows. The emergent power of relationship, always greater than the sum of its parts. Consequently, this is my last Shiva incense. The other one I just burned was the second to last. continuing on. I want to read Browne. Well, I picked him up randomly, so let's just read him. He's really good to end on, though. Maybe that means we're stopping. I don't think so. I want to see this at least in the Louis Ming, probably, and Benabel Wynn. Okay, hexagram 14, our secret hexagram, hidden influence behind the situation. Tao Yu, possession in great measure. Those who are steadfastly balanced, humble, and in harmony with the sage inherit everything under the sun. This is a time of great power and clarity for you. By conscientiously following the path of proper principles, you have come into partnership with the higher power and enjoy the influence of the creative everywhere in your life. Third mention of the creative. Browne Walker, he talks about the creative in our supporting hexagram 9, and obviously in the creative number 1, and now here in the secret hexagram 14. You have come into partnership with the higher power and enjoy the influence of the creative everywhere in your life. If you remain modest and balanced now, you will come into possession of prosperity and success. The I Ching indicates here that you increased your personal power by purifying your thoughts, actions, and attitudes. When you have done this long enough so that service of the true and good becomes your only goal in life, you come into complete harmony with the universe. As a result, you begin to have a far-reaching influence, shining on others as the sun shines on everything under the heavens. Because your power is so great, it is especially important to maintain correct attitudes and behavior now. Having attained a high position, you are wise to remain modest and generous toward others. Remember that it is the higher power who gives you your strength. Do not make the mistake of becoming proud, disdainful of others, or convinced of your ability to control events. By leaving the sage in charge, withdrawing from all inferior influences, and promoting the good wherever possible, you remain gracefully balanced and in harmony with the universe. Your peace of mind becomes permanent, and in this way, you come into possession of success and prosperity. Benabel Wynn. Hexagram 14. Our secret hexagram, the hidden influence behind the situation. Da Yu, accolades, the oracle. Heaven bestows great blessings when you are aligned with the will of the divine. This is an omen of great validation. What you have been intuiting is true and correct. What you seek to undertake is a worthy endeavor that will yield success and prosperity. Heaven supports your expansion. And yet, stay modest and heed the true lesson of this message. Those blessed with abundance should not allow themselves to feel full. The divine flame illuminates the heavens, the bestowing of great accolades and praise. The sage neutralizes malevolence with benevolence. A great destiny awaits. Align yourself with heaven's will. This hexagram bodes supreme success and wealth, many blessings bestowed, a great harvest. So here we wrap in the idea of a harvest with that of the idea of our supporting hexagram, clouds holding rain, but not quite raining yet. So Browne Walker also references the creative in each of these hexagrams, our primary, supporting, and the secret one. And if this great creative force, like an energy, is just hovering behind the scenes, waiting to dump its nourishing rain on the fields, then we are assured a great harvest. But we need to remember, this isn't our doing. This is the creative. This is the doing of the creative, and that needs to be honored and not acted with pride, ego. That kind of stuff can derail things in a real hurry. If you want to think of it in terms of, I've been bringing this up too, the bicameral mind theory, that you've got the right and left hemispheres. Too much of the left hemisphere of the rationale and the picking apart and dissecting brain is something that divides. It doesn't really see everything for the whole, that I would imagine God, the Tao, the higher power that Browne calls it, whatever you want to call it, Shiva, right? That which is behind all of this cannot be taken credit for by anyone among us. It is something that is active in the world, and what it's doing, this type of process, I have honed in order to track that and basically try and figure out how the sage would act in any given situation, being looking closely at what the Tao is doing at any given time. And there's kind of like a balance you want to give to the right and left hemispheres, if you want to talk about it like that, as if one is coming from that numinous place, that mysterious place, and the other is, you know, here to protect your meat suit and get your job done in a timely fashion, that kind of stuff. You need kind of both of these things going on, but you need to give a little bit more precedence to the part that sees from that higher perspective, where you don't know how things are being orchestrated behind the scenes. You just see the effect of them, much like it talking about the wind, the effect that the wind has. In our supporting hexagram, the wind was above Qian heaven, and it talked about when it's below, it can cool the beings and the myriad creatures. When it's up above, it does less help. But still, the restraining power of the small, it's kind of like that, this female or yin line holding back all these masculine lines. They're honoring this and holding back and waiting, but eventually they're going to be dumped forth. So I would say the most important part of this probably would be the choice point, which in the secret hexagram talks about the dragon hovering in the abyss, or in Louis Ming's version, he says the embryo has been completed, and it's in the womb or the abyss, and it's waiting transmutation or molting. And so we're pretty much guaranteed here a store of rain to nourish this process. And it does talk about a lot of this creative force. So Brian Brown Walker doesn't think it's so much a choice point as it is being in tune with the will of that higher power, the Tao, God, the universe, Shiva, what have you, being receptive to the guidance of that. So slipping into a little bit more of a numinous liminal space at this time, in order to really make sure whatever message seems to be coming through to you, you can be sure that your ego isn't the one creating it. That's not where it's springing from. How do you judge that? How do you find that out? What ways in your life have you used? The I Ching is a major one that I use, that pretty much I gauge all others by, for the most part, other than kind of my own intuition that is like obviously can sense things all the time. And using the I Ching like this, I kind of develop that intuition into kind of like a systematic way of working with reality in a constantly supporting of the creative. You might call it that. Constantly seeking for the will of the creative, and knowing that if I hijack that process, or I try and divert the flow of energy into some ego-related thing, that I'm looking very short-sightedly at what I could obtain when, here's a for instance, if I were to direct any of the buildup of this restraint of the excess of the great, or the taming power of the small, that power is built by restraining its expression. I think that's how James de Corn said it. If I build up all of this chi, life force, influence, creative force, power, prana, in the wings, and I have it just sitting there, you need to be sure that your will is the will of the self's will, and that you're not stealing from what the self has in plan or in mind, which is something you're not always going to know in time and step with what that is. It's a finding out process, and a trusting that it's always going to be greater than a way that your ego is going to try and be like, oh, I already know. I'm going to direct it towards this thing. Anywho's, who else are we reading from? Oh, we wanted to read from Louis Ming, but first, I'm just going to piecemeal out some really, really rapidly some of the secret hexagram stuff out of James de Corn's Gnostic Book of Changes. This is such a phenomenal, timely reading. I find it important to spend a little bit more time on it. James de Corn calls our secret hexagram the hidden influence behind the situation wealth. Other titles might be possession in great measure, the symbol of great possession, sovereignty, great having, great possessing, the great possessor, great wealth, abundance, having what is great. Quote from D.F. Hook, often means things other than material possessions or achievement. Count your blessings, for they are many. Blofeld, he who possesses much, supreme success, this is in the Judgment. Ritzema/Karcher, great possessing, spring growing. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of your relation to an overriding concern or central idea. It emphasizes that organizing all your efforts around this idea is the adequate way to handle it. And then the image, like fire over heaven, the image of wealth. The superior man represses evil and nurtures virtue in accordance with the benevolent will of heaven. Wilhelm/Bain's fire in heaven above, the image of possession in great measure. Thus the superior man curbs evil and furthers good, and thereby obeys the benevolent will of heaven. Blofeld, this hexagram symbolizes fire in the heavens. When the trigrams for heaven is above, whatever is below may be separated from it. When it is below, it indicates fusion or intermixing with what is above. The significance here is that the splendor of a very great man lights up the heavens. The superior man suppresses those who are evil and upholds the virtuous. Most gladly he accords with heaven and carries out its commands. Lu, fire over heaven symbolizes great possessions. The superior man suppresses evil and honors virtue, and thus follows the will of heaven and waits upon destiny. Ritzema/Karcher, fire located above heaven, great possessing. A Chun Tzu, or chief son or superior person, uses terminating hate to display improvement. A Chun Tzu, or chief son or superior person, uses yielding to heaven to relinquish fate. Clary 2, leaders obey nature and accept its order by stopping the bad and promoting the good. Wu, fire above and heaven below form great wealth. Thus the Chun Tzu, or chief son or superior person, suppresses the evil and promotes the good. He abides by the will of heaven to enrich his life. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, wealth shows the magnetic line in the central ruler's place and honored by the dynamic lines above and below. The figure is composed of the trigrams of strength and clarity. The central line of clarity responds to the central line of strength, eventuating in timely action. This indicates great progress and success. Leg, wealth means great havings. The symbol and symbolizes a kingdom, family, or individual in a state of prosperity. The danger in such a position arises from the pride it is likely to engender. Here, however, everything is against that. The place of honor is occupied by a magnetic line so that the ruler will be humble, and all the dynamic lines will respond to her with sympathetic allegiance. The ruler's seat is in the central position of the trigram of clarity, and hence her strength is directed by intelligence, and all her actions are timely, like the seasons of heaven. Fire above the sky shines far, symbolizing the vastness of the territory of wealth. To develop virtue and repress evil is in accordance with the will of heaven, which has given to all men a nature fitted for goodness. Clary 2, all states of being have this essence inherent in them and are indeed made of this essence. But all states other than that of complete enlightenment are out of harmony with this essence in some way. Buddhahood is when you accord with this essence. Wu, as the sun shines brightly high in the sky, both the good and the bad will be exposed. The responsibility of the Chun-Si, or chief son or superior person, is to discriminate between them. He acts in accordance with the nature of goodness, the will of heaven, to enrich his life. Notes and paraphrases judgment. The greatest kind of wealth accrues from furthering the work. The superior man manages his forces in accordance with the goals of the work. Wealth is the inverse of the preceding figure, union of forces. If the 13th hexagram depicts a process of uniting, the 14th might be seen as the completion of that process. To have one's inner forces correctly united is indeed possession in great measure, which is the title that Wilhelm gives to this figure. It is emphasized in the image that this wealth must be administered in accordance with the benevolent will of heaven, which is to say, the principles of the work must always guide one's choices if one is not to lose equilibrium and become pauperized by illusion. A quote from Chou Tun-yi, the superior man considers a rich possession of moral principles to be honor, and peace in his person to be wealth. And then Liu Yiming's Taoist I Ching, which he wrote in 1796 as a Taoist adept, is quite alchemical in nature. 14, great possession, turned right to it. In great possession are creation and development. Explanation. Great possession means greatness of possession. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is fire, luminous, and below is heaven, strong. Acting strongly with lucidity, producing understanding in the midst of strength, growing increasingly illumined as strength increases, growing increasingly strong as illumination increases. It is therefore called great possession. This hexagram represents wealth with daily renewal. Governing the inward with strictness, it follows on the previous hexagram, obstruction. In obstruction, yin energy acts while yang energy retires. One accepts the false and loses the real, obstructing the openness of consciousness, becoming darker and darker daily until the original celestial virtues are completely gone. If you want to restore celestial qualities, producing something where there is nothing, it cannot be done but for the path of strength and illumination. What is strength? It is the moment of pure truth, adamantly strong and unbending. What is illumination? It is illumining myriad things with open consciousness undimmed. If one can be strong, the mind is firm and the will far-reaching, cultivating every appropriate path and establishing every virtue, having such wealth in abundance. If one can be lucid, one can discern principles clearly and thoroughly, seeing surely with real knowledge, taking to whatever is good, reforming every fault, being daily renewed. Once one is strong and lucid, one has inner autonomy and cannot be moved by anything. This is real, true practice. It is like the sun being in the sky, its light shining on everything, covering everything. Nothing can deceive it. Yellow sprouts cover the earth. Golden flowers bloom throughout the world. Wherever one may walk, everywhere is the Tao. With the greatness of possession and the far range of action, nothing started fails to develop. In the commentary section of 14, our secret hexagram, which is the hidden influence behind the situation. Great possession, fire above, heaven below. Fire is in the sky, great possession. Thus does the superior person stop evil and promote good, obeying heaven and accepting its order. Great possession means greatness of possession. Above is fire, below is heaven. This is fire in the sky. When the sun is in the sky, much is produced. The sun shines afar. Everything is under the sun in the sky. This is the image of great possession. What superior people see in this is that the nature of celestial order is one integral principle in which all that is good is ultimately assembled. This is basic great possession. But because of mixture with temporal conditioning, once cognitive consciousness comes into play, the primordial is damaged. That's like the left and right hemispheres of the brain, you might say. The ego part, if it gets too much energy and focus directed to it, or its ways of making decisions entirely, then you can lose that primal quality of that you might say pre-conscious state, the state where we have our feet firmly grounded in the unconscious, or from the self, you might say. But because of mixture with temporal conditioning, once cognitive consciousness comes into play, the primordial is damaged. From this point on, good and bad mix. Those with great possession come to have little possession, and those with little possession come to have nothing. Therefore, as soon as a bad thought arises, superior people immediately stop it, and as soon as a good thought arises, they promote it, obeying heaven and finding happiness in its order. If one cannot find happiness in the celestial order, it is because of not being able to obey heaven. Not obeying heaven is due to not being able to stop evil and promote good. If one can stop evil and promote good, eventually one will reach ultimate good without evil. With true sanity always present, one returns to the pristine state of completeness, which is the order of heaven. Then one goes from destitution to possession, from possession to greatness. Human life in the world has a mission, which alone is important. With this direction there is life. Without it there is death. If one cannot find happiness in this mission, this direction, this order, everything else is empty and false. That to which heaven directs humanity is only good. If one can find happiness in that command, then this is obeying heaven. Obeying heaven is the way to obey the command. Finding happiness in the celestial mandate is the way to find happiness in heaven. Having the direction of heaven is the greatest of possessions, but having the direction of heaven lies entirely in stopping evil and promoting good. Stopping evil and promoting good is illumination. Obeying heaven and finding happiness in its order is strength. Strength is the substance, illumination is the function. Open awareness, unobscured, embraces myriad principles and responds to myriad things. Through clarification of the quality of illumination, one eventually reaches ultimate good, wholly integrated with the celestial design, nature and life stabilized. No possession is more substantial than this. No greatness is greater than this. No external possessions in the world can compare with it. I am curious. My mind wandered a little bit because going back to what James DeCorn said, he said to focus in his recommendations for meditation on the primary hexagram 1, to read the Confucian one over and over and over again. He said, this translation, I don't normally read it. I read it last time for the first time, but it has Confucius as one of the authors. So it looks like they took his words into consideration when they put this one together. So I'm going to read from it. I Ching, creative principle, the trigrams. Above, Chien, heaven, the creative. Below, Chien, heaven, the creative. Chien represents what is great, penetrating, advantageous, correct, and firm. It is the originator, the creative. The hexagram consists entirely of yang lines with the qualities of creativity, virility, activity, and strength. There is no weakness or yielding. It is a double image of the trigram heaven, or origination. It embodies the inner creative power of the lower trigram, representing that of man, and the outer creativity of the upper trigram, that of heaven. The judgment. Chien works sublime success. Perseverance brings favorable results to he who is firm and unyielding. Commentary. Vast is the great originator. All things owe their beginning to it. and it contains all the meanings embodied in its name. The clouds move and the rain falls everywhere. All things appear in their developed form. The initiated comprehend the relationship between beginning and end, and how each of the 6 lines reaches its accomplishment at the appointed time. At the proper hour, they mount the chariot drawn by these 6 dragons and drive across the sky. Qian transforms everything, developing its true nature as heaven determines, preserving great harmony and union. The initiate appears high above all things, and everything under heaven enjoys true repose. The image, the movement of the heavens, reveals transcendent power. The superior man, therefore, makes himself strong and indefatigable. And then our changing line 4. The flight across the abyss is not sure. He who is resolute suffers no reproach. The great man can launch himself into the world or retire into contemplation. As long as he is true to his nature, he will not be blamed for anything. Let's get a randomly card-drawn chapter from the Tao Te Ching while we wrap up the reading. More than anything, I want to highlight the relationship between the ego and the self, or you might call it the creative versus the petty person, you might say. In I-ming parlance, he talks about great people versus petty people. And the only real difference is that the great person is in harmony with the self or the Tao and patterns himself after it. The petty person is really just in it for what they can get out of any given situation for the ego and doesn't really see the consequences of their actions on the scope of things. This is a culminating point where clearly with our primary hexagram 1, heaven, or the dynamic, or Kundalini, was one of the titles that James de Corn had for it, there's a buildup of power. In the supporting hexagram, the restraining power of the small, especially from Brian Browne Walker's perspective, behind everything there's this creative power still, kind of like in the clouds, waiting to rain down nourishment onto the land. And let's look at what was highlighted with that supporting hexagram really quick. 9, through Hilary Barrett's lens. Small taming. Key questions. What small thing can I work on today? How can I cultivate a better terrain? Small taming, creating success. Dense clouds without rain come from my Western altars. To tame is to restrain and also to accumulate and nurture. It's what the farmer does. Here, the small farmer cultivates the soil of his own small plot, hoping the offerings made at the Western altars will bring rain. The Zhao people, like the clouds, came from the West. Before they were ready to receive the mandate of heaven and bring about change, they prepared for many decades, cultivating their society like Earth. So a time of small taming brings great hope for future growth and success. It's just that, at present, there is no rain, only clouds, and all they have brought so far is gloom. This means small restraint and the experience of small, frustrating setbacks and things that don't quite work yet. However, this also brings advice to cultivate the situation and yourself in small ways, developing your readiness and fitness just as a small farmer works the soil. You can't make things grow in a single gesture, and so you need self-restraint. You have to work steadily, responding conscientiously to the realities here at ground level, caring for the small details. Image. Wind moves above heaven, small taming. A noble one cultivates the natural pattern of character. The wind moves above heaven. It doesn't yet bring rain to earth. It is directed by the inner creative force of heaven, naturally moving with it. Inwardly, there are unchanging principles. Outwardly, your actions gradually take on the shape of those inner principles. This is self-cultivation that aligns you with a creative power. She talks about the creative power too. It concentrates on growing potential rather than bringing about results. Sequence. Small taming follows from hexagram 8, seeking union. Seeking union naturally has occasion to tame things, and so small taming follows. You have freely chosen where you belong and with whom, following your natural affinities. Now, if any of the potential you were drawn to is to be realized, you need to begin the detailed work. After the homesteader has entered virgin territory and chosen his own plot, he must get up next morning and every morning to work the soil, one weed at a time. Here's this small farm. And Lu I-ming, talking about our secret, or a changing line 4, says, which is the most focused part of the reading. It puts a pin in the map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself, takes precedence over all other elements, and is the most focused part of the reading. Changing line 4 of Hexagram 1, heaven, sometimes leaping or in the abyss, no error. Explanation. The quality of strength has developed. The spiritual embryo is complete, awaiting the time to molt and transmute. This is like a dragon, which may leap up or remain in the abyss. One carefully examines the climate and takes precautions against danger so that one can be free from error. So, focus really should be on how to transmute and molt that embryo that has now been completed. The great work in Taoist, especially from Lu I-ming's alchemical look at the I Ching, the great work is about creating this embryo, a living embryo within yourself, and that coming to life eventually. And I would almost look at it, and I'm limited in my understanding of Taoist alchemy, I will say that, but the way it comes across to me is this marrying of the human with the sage consciousness, or the Tao, where one informs the other and they move in concert together. And this new embryo is this living potential latent in the human being that needs to be roused and awakened. And this, they call it self-perpetuating, or it's like a continuation. It's called self-perpetuating of some sort. It is some self-perpetuating process that this power that flows through the universe, the Chi, it's almost like an ability to harness it through a particular route, like you've created a valley through which this river can run, and you know the water is about to come. It's just being held in the clouds for a time. And you kind of want to be aware of what's happening, listening to the signs, synchronicities, all that kind of stuff, paying attention to the Tao and what it's doing. And so kind of like when the wave rises, the boat that you're in on that wave will rise with it and will do it naturally. And whether in the abyss or out of the abyss, all will be correct because it will be going with the time. And that's the most important thing, is to be correct according to the time. So our fullmost attention should be on that aspect of what is the Tao doing, what's happening in this time, how do I act with it like a river, and directing that flow through that valley, activating and transmuting and molting that newly created embryo. Here on this channel, I have received the mandate of heaven at one point, which was an incredible turning point in the readings, where you feel like you're just kind of like flirting with the self and hoping that, you'll gain favor in some way, to a partnership And here, the great work being accomplished of creating this embryo, this is also, I would say, the next stage, at least in that process. And being that the last reading had Kundalini all about it, and this one, the primary hexagram, could be called Kundalini. James Corn called it that. There's this expansion of consciousness. That's what the last reading was called too, expansion of awareness. All of this is imminent, and it's waiting in the wings. Our egos are thin pieces of paper holding it back, and there's all this power that isn't really anyone's power to claim as much as it is the Tao and this flow of Qi, or life energy, that if we're prepared for it and we have a channel through which that can flow through us, we'll be in a place where when that water breaks that barrier, that thin piece of paper, and flows through it, that can go in a course that is natural, that the Tao directs, so to speak, that we're flowing with the changes and crossing the great river auspiciously, that we have firm footsteps, we're planted firmly in this continuous renewal. That's the term, that we have this energy that's continually renewing. It's not something you have to build up. I imagine at a certain point of human consciousness, it gets to be where you're not having to produce your own energy as much as you're just kind of like a night light of that energy until it ends up illuminating the world. And that's actually a pretty good metaphor. It makes me think of the Hermit card, where this energy is imbued in this nightlight, or this character holding the lantern. And they're surrounded by darkness holding this lantern. And the lantern is like of the star, that card, or the illumination of the sun. And it's only a matter of time before that's brought out and it lights up all the other lanterns, or illuminates a path, whatever you want to say by it. But that's very similar kind of imagery I'm seeing to this creative power being restrained by the clouds, that is bound soon to just nourish the land and cause, since it is creative force, hexagram 1, I think of it as, light, the light of heaven. So this illumination can be all-encompassing when it is time. So one of the things that's often said is great is the time, and great are the changes in a time of blah, blah, blah. I feel that for this big time. That is, great are the things to be done in a time of illumination, you might say. But what exactly that is, I think, is going to be a little bit more difficult to detect with the intellect. It is going to be better sensed with the intuition. And that's why I hone my intuition with this system, is to be kind of like as close to like a blade, or a feather in the wind, where you can really be sensitive to that movement. And you feel it with your inner world, you see it in your outer world. And you just remain receptive, knowing that you're transversing scenes of danger and peril and a destruction. And the way through it is going to be that everything changes. That's the only sure thing. The only consistent thing is change. And the I Ching, the Book of Changes, maps that change. And Benabel Wen talks about it being kind of like a compass, and she thinks of the Tao Te Ching as being like the map. And so the idea is to use that compass to see where true north is for the time and be able to find your way with the help of that map. And so we read both. Let's get into the map then. Happy advancement of consciousness in whatever way that finds you, and may it lead to the ridding of evil and the advancement of welfare for all mankind, all beings. May all beings be saved. The Bodhisattva vow, right? Too many. In this work, it's kind of like this steady, step-by-step process that you never know when something profound is going to come through. You kind of sense it beforehand and in the middle of it, but to really get the confirmation, these readings have been helpful for that, for me. And then when it really confirms what I'm seeing, I have that confidence where I can rest that subconscious kind of mysterious feel to the setting of the time, the set and setting. And yeah, feel the way through. If we're all kind of walking each other home, shout out to Swimming Through the Void, who recently passed. He used to say that. But walking each other home, that's honestly what this is about, right? But there is no really each other. We're just walking ourselves home. And we've forgotten that this is us. The I am consciousness. I am. That's all-encompassing. And yet, even behind that, there's so much mystery you can't even... Your conscious mind is not going to be able to translate it with language. It more would be likened to a realization of one's own being and how that is all beingness and is not neatly confined and packaged into your human shell. That we've named this creature human, put a title on it, out of mind, out of sight, out of mind. That's, oh, there's a human. This is a human. I'm a human, but what the fuck is that? That's a name. Monkeys seemingly developed when they became less hairy and able to write words and communicate and create fires. Does that mean they have a all-encompassing handle on what they're a part of or what this even is? No, it does not. None of our words do that. And so the limits that we have in language, in religion, in science, in all of the things are limits that are always going to stop us if we let it, if we're content on resting on titles. If we stop at titles, one of my favorite Tao Te Ching chapters says that once the whole is cut up into parts, the parts need names. There are already enough names. Taking that one. 43. Reading from Benjamin Hoff, Eternal Tao Te Ching. Without effort. The world's ultimate yielding softness quickly rides over the world's ultimate unyielding hardness. Without form enters without openings. Because of them, I know without effort's advantages. no word teachings and without effort benefits, under heaven few grasp them. I'm going to bring this into the lineup from here on. John C.H. Wu, 43. The softest of all things overrides the hardest of all things. Only nothing can enter into no space. Hence, I know the advantages of non-ado. Few things under heaven are as instructive as the lessons of silence, or as beneficial as the fruits of non-ado. Chi Fu Fang in Jane English, chapter 43, the Tao Te Ching. The softest thing in the universe overcomes the hardest thing in the universe. That without substance can enter where there is no room. Hence, I know the value of non-action. Teaching without words and work without doing are understood by very few. And Nothingness and Zero, a postmodern approach to Lao Tzu's Tao Te Ching by Jeremy M. Miller. Incomprehensible passivity, actionless action, invincible passivity, everywhere but invisible, incomprehensible understanding, zero.